Ethiopia's government has declared a national state of emergency and ordered residents of Addis Ababa to prepare to defend their neighborhoods as Tigrayan forces make rapid gains and advance towards the capital. Fighters from the northern Tigray region say they have seized two cities about 400 kilometers away from Addis Ababa. The rebels have been locked in a brutal war with government forces since last year. And the conflict has plunged hundreds of thousands of people in Tigray into famine, left thousands of civilians dead, and forced millions to flee their homes.
Just days after the latest deadly airstrike in the Tigrayan capital, the Ethiopian government is warning that fighting may soon reach Ethiopia's capital city, Addis Ababa. Some residents fear the advanced Tigrayan fighters, who are now reported less than 250 miles from the capital. Others support the government's decision. The state of emergency is to protect the nation's existence, unity and sovereignty with security. I do not think it will harm or benefit any individuals.
It worries me a lot because Dessie and Kombolcha are near Addis Ababa. They travelled many kilometres to get there. I think they will control Addis Ababa as well.
After a year of brutal fighting, thousands of civilians are dead, while millions have had to flee their homes. The UN has warned that all sides in the conflict have committed severe abuses.
All parties to the Tigray conflict have committed violations of international human rights, humanitarian and refugee law. Some of these may amount to war crimes and crimes against humanity.
But with soldiers on the move and both sides showing no willingness to compromise, the Ethiopians caught in the middle will continue to suffer.
Liz Throssel is a spokesperson for the United Nations Human Rights Office, and she joins us now from Geneva, Switzerland. I'm going to start right off the bat with you. How worried are you about the situation in Ethiopia? Because we're getting reports that rebels of the Tigray People's Liberation Front say they are close to capturing Addis Ababa.
Well, it is clearly a very worrying situation and it's deteriorating. And this underscores the importance of what we've been saying today, that during the conflict, which began last November, that all parties to the conflict have committed violations such as attacks on civilians, extrajudicial killings, torture, and of course rape, lots of sexual violence and gender-based violence against women. We are concerned. The report that we've issued today went up to the end of June, but we have put out also information today talking about what has happened since. The conflict dynamics changed at the end of June, but we continue to see violations and abuses being committed by the Ethiopian and Eritrean forces and by Tigrayan forces. We are very worried, and that's why the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, Michelle Bachelet, today made an impassioned plea for the violence to stop and for the parties to ensure the protection of civilians.
Now, Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, we understand, has urged residents to arm themselves and defend Addis. How dangerous is it if the line between civilians and combatants is blurred?
Well, from a human rights perspective, it is incredibly important. We always speak about the impact of conflict on civilians. And it is clear that when conflict is waged, that the parties must take all precautions to protect civilians. And that is something that we have not seen. We did not see, and we have documented it in our report. There were indiscriminate attacks on civilian places, such as schools and hospitals and places of worship. We heard from victims and witnesses how people were killed in shelling. We've heard a whole range of abuses and violations documented and told to us by the people that we spoke to for our report.
Now, as you know, there has been no let-up in fighting. There is an intensification, as a matter of fact, taking place. Who could mediate a potential ceasefire? The African Union, the UN?
Well, I think it is very important that, of course, the parties to the conflict in Tigray get together, that they have a ceasefire, that they are able to engage in inclusive dialogue. It is also clearly important that the international community plays a role because things are deteriorating. It is incredibly worrying. And our report today does lay bare the complete devastating impact that the conflict has had and continues to have on civilians. Remember, the humanitarian situation in the country is absolutely dire. Across Tigray, Afar and Amhara, there are 7 million people who are in dire need of humanitarian assistance, 5 million alone in Tigray, and 400,000 of those are in famine-like conditions. So it's absolutely urgent that the fighting stops, that there is a ceasefire, and that the parties get around the table to talk, and also that the parties are able to investigate and hold accountable those who have perpetrated human rights violations and abuses.
Now, it seems that all parties are treating this strife as existential. Some observers are calling the atrocities that are happening in Ethiopia a genocide, but that word has not been used in this report. Is the UN shying away from using such terminology?
No, not shying away at all. What the report lays out is that what we found, the torture, the indiscriminate attacks, the extrajudicial killings, and other violations and abuses may amount to war crimes and crimes against humanity. And these are very serious atrocity crimes. Now, we don't speak of genocide in our report, but we do flag that there appear to be instances of ethnically driven violence. And we're saying that there needs to be further investigation of this. But just to underscore, we're saying that war crimes and crimes against humanity may have been committed, and these are incredibly serious crimes indeed.
Liz Throssel is a spokesperson for the United Nations Human Rights Office in Geneva, Switzerland, and she's been talking to us about the UN report on the conflict in Ethiopia. Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.